Hello, hello. Welcome to Success Story Saturday, January 13th, 2018. Steve Sipress here. And I know it's getting kind of like a broken record if you follow my daily videos, but it is yet another spectacular, beautiful, calm, warm winter day here in sunny Arizona. Behind me, the sun just about beginning to set, so the desert is turning yellow. And in a few minutes, by the time I finish this, might be turning to some purplish and orange as we get ready for another spectacular, beautiful sunset. First, Rhino of the day. We have made it through the entire 1995 Rhino Court calendar, with each page having a fantastic, fun artwork rendering of a rhino. And this month is December, where the rhino is skating on the ice and dressed very warmly with a hat and a scarf and gloves and a winter coat, and just like I am today. No. But I do remember those days, and it would have been more fitting if I would have known in advance who I was going to talk about today on Success Story Saturday, that I would have shown what I did yesterday, which is the football playing rhino from November, because today I'm talking about Hugh Culverhouse, in honor of the University of Alabama winning yet another national college football championship this week. Hugh Culverhouse is the University of Alabama's business school, is the Culverhouse School of Business, or School of Commerce and Business Administration, officially, I think it's called. So if you go to Culverhouse, you're going to the University of Alabama Business School, and it's named after Hugh Culverhouse, one of the most successful entrepreneurs of the 20th century. Although this guy had a certain, I'll get into a little bit about the story, but he is well known as a certain type of a person that might not be considered the ultimate in success, but financially, there's no arguing the matter. Hugh Culverhouse graduated from the University of Alabama, also got a law degree from the University of Alabama, and then he, after a few years in the Army Air Corps and working as a assistant federal prosecutor, I think he spent 10 years at the IRS, and that's where he became well-versed in tax law, and then he left for private practice and became one of the nation's leading tax attorneys. But that's not how he made his fortune. He made his fortune by investing in real estate. Through his tax attorney practice, he met some real estate investors, and that's where he made his fortune. Red Elias here. Great seeing you. Thanks for the likes. And by the time of his death, Hugh Culverhouse had an ownership stake in 37 different companies and was worth over about $380 million and was in Forbes' top 250 wealthiest people in America. So by any standards, extremely successful entrepreneur. Perhaps, and almost undoubtedly, his most famous business that he owned was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. What happened is in 1972, I believe it was, Culverhouse had a handshake accepted to buy the Los Angeles Rams for $17 million. Can you imagine? Now NFL teams are all worth, I think they're all worth over $1 billion, or the average is $1 billion. But he had an offer to buy that team for 17, and then the owner underhandedly reneged on the deal and sold it to somebody else for $19 million. And so Hugh Culverhouse sued, as an attorney would in our overly litigious society, and they settled out of court, and part of the settlement was he would get special consideration for the next expansion franchise when that happened, which came along 2 years later. I guess they, of course, knew that was going to be happening, and that's why that was part of the settlement. That wouldn't be something they'd talk about today, because there are no plans for the NFL to expand. Certainly not based on how they have bamboozled themselves into being unwatchable this season, and who knows what the future brings. But I digress. So a couple years later, actually, amazingly, even though Culverhouse from Alabama and living in Jacksonville at the time was offered the Seattle franchise, when there was a Seattle and a Tampa Bay franchise going to come in, because they had the Tampa Bay franchise to go to somebody else, but then that fell through. The guy didn't like the deal. So Hugh Culverhouse became the first owner of the NFL Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that team famously lost every game for its first 2 seasons, and yet Culverhouse always made money. And so that's what I was referring to in the beginning. He was known as a complete penny pincher, and he was amazing. In the annals of all of the NFL, he is perhaps the number one owner of all time to have the worst on-the-field team and the best off-the-field on-the-books profits. Okay, he was always one of the top money-making teams in the NFL and always paying among the very least in salaries and least in costs for everything. There was even a story about the first plane that he chartered for the team for the first game almost crashed. It was such a cut-rate charter plane that he got. I mean, this guy was just an amazing penny pitcher. And so he had a mix of being welcomed by the other NFL owners for his acumen in business and in budgetary affairs, and helped them make a lot of money and get through a couple of player strikes and all that kind of stuff. And really, Gene Upshaw, who was the head of the Players Union, was like, man, how could I go up against that guy? I mean, he really was great for the league as far as making money in those conflicts, but as far as the team, man, the team and the fans, he just mistreated them incredibly. So a couple of stories, and I'll just leave it at that. You can look them up if you want, but one had to do with Doug Williams, the star quarterback who later on took the Washington Redskins to the Super Bowl, but he was like an all-pro there for 3 of his 5 years that he played for Tampa Bay, and clearly the star of the team. And yet he was paid by Culverhouse as the 42nd highest paid quarterback in the league. And just so you know, the league doesn't have 42 teams and didn't back then. So he was paid like as if he was a third-string quarterback, and he was one of the top quarterbacks in the league. So as the story goes, finally, Culverhouse offered him like $400,000, and which would make him, he told him, salaries weren't as well known as they are now, pretty much public knowledge. You can go to websites and find out. Hey, Chris, you can find out what every professional athlete is making, give or take a little bit, plus bonuses and whatever. But back then, nobody knew. So he was famous for telling the players, oh, this is one of the highest paying franchise. We have one of the highest payrolls in the league. And yet he had the third lowest payroll in the league. And so that made the players and the fans not too happy. And Doug Williams, he offered him $400,000 firm. Williams wanted $600,000. Culverhouse wasn't budging at all, and so Culverhouse, the mistake he made then was he traded his first-round draft pick, which, by the way, he was famous for trading all his first-round draft picks, which later on, as the fans realized, it's not just because he was stupid, it's the opposite. It's because he was looking to save money. You sign those first-round draft picks, you got to pay him big money. So he didn't mind having a losing team on the field as long as he was making gobs of money from owning the franchise. So that year, he traded away their top draft pick for a backup quarterback, I think from Cincinnati Bengals, who was terrible, and just in case Doug Williams wasn't going to sign, or maybe to put some pressure or get some leverage. Well, Doug Williams said, he took that as like, oh, I can see you don't want me. You just got a new quarterback, so I'll go to the USFL, the Competing Football League, and off he went. And so they lost Doug Williams, their best player, their only chance of ever winning at all, and so fans were not too happy with that. Of course, Hugh Culverhouse ecstatic because he could pay this crappy quarterback almost no money, and not have to pay Doug Williams even $400,000. See, because of the way the NFL works compared to other leagues, they make the lion's share of their money. The owners get the lion's share of their revenue from shared national TV contract revenue. So even though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were so bad that they were never on national TV, they were almost never on TV at all because the blackout rule, they never sold out any games. I think they had the record of not selling out for like 10 or 12 straight years, or 14 or something, so they were never on TV, and they were certainly not on Monday Night Football or any of that stuff, and yet they got the same amount of money from the Monday Night Football contract of ABC as the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Dallas Cowboys or whoever the top teams were those days, the Oakland Raiders. I mean, that's how the NFL works. So he could take all that money, and then being in Tampa Bay instead of New York, very low expenses to run the franchise compared to big cities. And then he could also pay the players basically nothing, and he made a killing and made a ton of money. I'll leave you with one more player story, and it's another famous player, more famous than Doug Williams, is Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson from Alabama. And the overwhelming Heisman Trophy winner, the overwhelming consensus number one greatest player coming out of football that year. And, of course, Tampa Bay, being the worst team of all time, had the first pick. And so everyone was all excited. Of course, the guy from Alabama, Hugh Culverhouse, is going to pick the guy from not the University of Alabama, University of Auburn, but from Alabama, Bo Jackson, and this is going to be great, and possibly we're going to be a great franchise now. And yet, Bo Jackson did not like Hugh Culverhouse. He has a keen sense of character and a great gut feeling, and he didn't like the guy. One reason, by the way, I read that he had visited Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay had told him that this was an NCAA-approved visit to their practice facility, when in fact it was not, and the NCAA ruled that was an illegal visit Bo Jackson made, and he had to sit out his senior year of baseball, which he was a better baseball player, or as good as a football player, and loved to play, of course. He's Bo Jackson. Bo knows. So I'm pretty sure he wasn't happy there with Hugh Culverhouse, and he told them, do not draft me, because I will not sign and I will not play for you guys. And so they said, as the owners are nowadays too, hey, Lee, you know, as you can see from all the anguish in the NFL, the players have no respect for the owners and will do anything to screw them up because they're totally mistreated. Well, here's a way they were mistreated. Hugh Culverhouse told Bo Jackson, I'm going to draft you anyway, and then you're going to have to play for me or play for no one. So, see ya. He drafted him, and then he gave him like a half of the going rate offer, a crappy offer, and Bo Jackson was like, I don't care what you offer me. I told you I ain't playing for you. And guess what? That's when Bo Jackson went to the Kansas City Royals and played professional baseball instead. And all the fans were like, how could Bo Jackson not play football? He's the Heisman Trophy winner. He's the number one greatest football player in college that year. He's not the number one baseball player. And besides, you got to play years in the minors to even make the majors. How did he not, the Heisman Trophy, the best player, not go and play football, especially right there in the South, for another guy who's from Alabama? Well, didn't like the guy, and the guy was a jerk, and Bo Jackson said, see ya, went to play for Kansas City, and later on went to the NFL, and went to the Oakland Raiders when he joined the NFL, which, by the way, had been the team that gave the best offer to Hugh Culverhouse in a trade for that number one draft pick, and they would have drafted and then signed Bo Jackson right out of college. But Hugh Culverhouse, being the jerk that he was, refused to trade Bo Jackson, and said, see ya, I'm going to lord it over you, and you're either going to play for me or not play at all. Bo Jackson got the last laugh and went and became an all-star playing baseball. Anyway, and it goes on. There were so many stories like that of Hugh Culverhouse being a complete penny-pinching jerk with the players, with the fans. I mean, there was one year that the USFL had a team in Tampa that was leading the league in attendance, because Hugh Culverhouse, you know, pissed off the fans so much and lost all over the place. And every time there was a good player that was about to start making money, you know, they were traded away or cut. They were gone. And so the fans were like, hey, we'll go to this Tampa other USFL team, which had a wide-open, fun offense and, you know, a lot of fun to go watch, while the boring Tampa Bay losing team had no one in the stands. And Hugh Culverhouse was like, well, that's because these aren't good fans here. Like, hello? They're obviously good football fans. They're just not fans of you and your team. But again, if you measure his success purely by the money, at the time of his death, he was worth $380 million, which, by the way, he attempted to write his own wife, out of his will and disinherit her. And that became a whole brouhaha, which it was... I think it unearthed all kinds of extramarital affairs, all kinds of crap going on. I mean, this guy was one not-so-great guy personally, but as a financially successful entrepreneur, he's today's success story Saturday. So take it for what it's worth. That's in honor of the University of Alabama, which one of their more famous and more financially successful alumni, Mr. Hugh Culverhouse, who donated a ton of money to the University of Alabama, and they named their business school the Culverhouse School of Commerce and Business Administration, or whatever, after him. And nowadays, of course, Alabama is the winningest college football team that anyone's ever heard of. I think they've now won 5 national championships in the last 9 years or something. Kind of crazy. So that's why we are featuring Hugh Culverhouse on today's Success Story Saturday. My business tip to you would be to take some time to really think about what success means to you. And my suggestion is that it's not all about the money. That money is important and it's great. And of course, the more money you make, the more people you can employ and the more people you can serve and the more money you can give away and the more things you can do. But not if it compromises you as a person and as a character and you mistreat people, including your employees, your customers, everybody. Like, yeah, I don't agree with that part of it. So I don't have a feeling I'll never be worth $380 million, even if I win the lottery, which is impossible since I will never play the lottery. I call it the losery. And so I'm never going to be worth that much money, so who am I to talk? But that's my 2 cents. In fact, compared to the amount of money Hugh Culverhouse had, I have about 2 cents. However, I'm enjoying another spectacular, beautiful day here with my beautiful wife, Michelle. We're going to have a nice, fun day tomorrow as well. And I'll be back pounding away on Monday, even though I know it's a holiday. And I think possibly there will be no mail on Monday. So, but I'll still be here tomorrow. I'll check in, and I'll still check in again on Monday. Getting a lot done. A couple of really huge projects about to launch 2018, if it isn't exciting enough already, just in the general economy booming and what's about to be happening here. But for me personally, for my clients, fantastic year is coming. And I hope it is for all of you too. So thanks to Lee and Brett and Chris and anybody else here live and anybody else watching on the replay. Have a fantastic rest of your Success Story Saturday. I'll check in again tomorrow on Sunday Fun Day. Hope you'll join me then. Helicopter is heading out overhead. Don't know if you can hear it. And the sun is beginning to set. And we're about to have another beautiful purple mountain majesty sunset here in sunny Arizona. I wish the best to you too. Thanks for being here today. Bye-bye.